We had Greg Palast on the line, BBC reporter, London Guardian reporter, best-selling author. They are being charged with infrastructure protection violation for videotaping FEMA camps and ExxonMobil in New Orleans, outside New Orleans in Louisiana. This is the new America. This is the new freedom. We're going to put cameras on you and have troops aim machine guns at you, but don't videotape us. Tell us what's happening to you. You violated infrastructure.
Yes. Well, what happened is that I was filming the wonderful guest lodgings for the victims of Hurricane Katrina. It's 1 year later. We have 73,000 people still living in this kind of Guantanamo on wheels in aluminum mobile homes here, cramped in, away from any work, away from any ability to get to their homes. They're not allowed back in their homes. It's like a prison camp, except that there's no furloughs because their homes are home furloughs because their homes are washed away. And I wanted to show that they were being put right up in the middle of nowhere, up against an Exxon refinery, where they have old people and kids sucking soot there. It's one of the filthiest zones in America. It's known as Cancer Alley for a good reason. That's where they stuck these people now for a year. And apparently, filming that means filming a critical infrastructure asset in violation of, the Patriot Act 19 or whatever they're up to by this point. And so we had a criminal charge placed against myself and my producer, Matt Pasquarella. And by the way, it is not about protecting this critical infrastructure of either the
the terrorists don't know how to find the ExxonMobil sprawling complex.
Not that I want to give Osama any hints, but if you go to gregpalast.com, you will see what I'm not showing you the pictures I took, which hardly show anything except that these poor people are stuck next to a filth generator. But what you can get, you will see on my site, is the Google map, which has highly detailed pictures and the coordinates of the refinery, which you can get off of Google Map.
Greg, why even give any credence to this? Now, this is a wrinkle I want you to add to your story if you graciously feel like it.
Sure.
Puffer Belly Toys 3 years ago, remember? St. Helen, Oregon. Was in the Associated Press and Oregonian. I interviewed her. They called the toy store owner up, tiny toy store, and they said, "You're being investigated for terrorism." For 3 weeks, she freaks out. They say, "You're not allowed to tell anyone, but we're investigating you. If you tell anybody, you'll be arrested for terrorism." Then they show up at her store and they say, "Take the magic cubes off your shelves. They're knockoffs of Rubik's Cubes." She calls the manufacturer, calls everybody, finds out they're totally legal, the patent's up, and she goes ahead and goes public. But they threatened to arrest her, and she said, "But don't you fight terror?" And their quote was, "Infrastructure protection, anything that violates infrastructure is terrorism." So I've been talking about this for years, and now here it is in your article with you.
Yeah, well, look. And a lot of this, by the way, was generated by Exxon, which has never been in love with me after my investigation of the Exxon Valdez and some of the other stories I've written about these guys. And what they really want to do, they want to force, it's all about, remember, I did this, by the way, for the Link TV, the Democracy Now! Network. I usually am on BBC TV. And actually ABC TV, believe it or not, New York was using some of this footage. And you know what the networks usually do to avoid problems is that they're happy to give you, and Osama, copies of cleaned footage so that you see the refineries and they look really nice and clean and little birds flying about and everything is nice. That's what it's all about. It's all about control of the images you see on TV. So if we wanted to use stock footage, they would show us anything we want. But if we wanted to show real footage, suddenly, we're Al-Qaeda's.
Well, Greg, this is a free country, okay? They say every dam, every bridge, every plant, everything is infrastructure protection. I've had troops tell me on the streets of New York that I can't videotape them, but there's cameras videotaping all of us that are public that you can dial in and look. It's a joke. It's an excuse for thuggery. So I guess you and your guy are going to prison now. This is a free country. And by the way, you have the members of the camp saying, quote, "It is a prison setup, and we know to get in and out, they get frisked, they get searched, the crime is rampant inside of them." I mean, this is a joke.
Because, there's nothing to do. What happens is that, remember, most of the people there, we think of all these poor people from New Orleans without jobs, but actually most of the people in this encampment, just about everyone there, are people who were working people. But their homes are washed away, their jobs are washed away, and there's no way for them to even get back to the city They're locked out of the city. They're told they can't move back into their houses because they're supposedly dangerous. They're basically turning into like this, real estate speculator's dream, New Orleans right now, to this kind of tourist boutique, the Six Flags over Louisiana. And then, the other part of the story that they didn't like is that we went in and filmed George Bush's contractors who were supposed to have come up with the evacuation plan for New Orleans, which 2 years before the flood. And their plan, these are contractors whose only qualifications for the job, as far as I could tell, were major donations to Republican candidates.
Well, Greg Palast, we know. Greg Palast, charged as an infrastructure protection violator now, along with his cameraman. We know what this is about. They've been arresting and putting reporters in jail who weren't part of the plane leak but reported on the leak. Then the leakers don't get in trouble. I mean, this is a precedent they're setting. They may go ahead and just send you off to jail.
Well, I just got a note from one lawyer who represented, nuns who were caught protesting outside of outside of the defense plan. They ended up in the can. Nuns. And he said, so Greg, please take this stuff seriously. Don't keep joking about it. Well, I am. It is a joke. There's no way not to laugh at this goofy stuff. I will say that there's been tremendous public reaction the last 2 days that have put heat on Exxon. And
I want people to know, though, that folks, we're going into Nazi Germany. They are arresting Christians for praying on the street corners. They are arresting nuns for being outside public defense plants, off major highways. They are trying to arrest Greg Palast and his cameraman right now. This is not a joke.
Well, it's not it is a kind of joke. It's just a very sick, weird joke. I mean, what the hell? I look great in orange anyway. So, but, I mean, the way I look at it is that I will say that now Exxon is getting nervous, trying to pull back, but they put the kind of suppression machinery into motion. Whether they can call the dogs in and then call them off is not so clear to me. They're very nervous now because obviously they're getting some very bad publicity, and part of that is that I know that, and I'm lucky in one way. Other reporters, if they got complaints to their networks, I mean, they would be fried, they'd be fired, they'd be doomed. At least I have some ability and some freedom myself so that the networks aren't nervous. Now, I have to tell you that I didn't tell ABC Network that we were being charged, because they would have pulled that film in 2 seconds, man. Just wham.
Well, that's clearly the whole point of this, but this shows us, Bin Laden attacked us, we're told, because he hates our freedom, but Bush and his cronies are moving to take our freedoms.
Yeah, look, it's the great con. It's all about info control. I mean, it is information control. Again, if I give the story that they want, if I do the shots that they want, the way they want, and the words that they want, they will give me a tour of the plant.
But how are they going to arrest you for being outside of a chemical plant videotaping it? I mean, give me a break.
Yeah, well, like I say, you can get these pictures on the government's own website, on Exxon's own website.
No, I know, but I mean, it doesn't matter. Hell, they'll put you in prison for 10 years, and all these neocons will go on radio and call you Al-Qaeda.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is exactly the problem. What it does is it puts a chill through other reporters.
How many years are you facing?
I don't take it. I got to tell you, Alex, I think that they are going to back down at this point.
I know, but under these charges, how long will you spend?
You know what? No one's giving me information. All they told me is a criminal charge, and it's like, well, you've dealt, about Homeland Security. They are not exactly forthcoming. It's not.
Were you aware of puffer belly toys? I think you ought to put that in your article just to point out how ridiculous it is.
I know, it's like mad. So what I'm doing is I don't have enough information, but I think we're going to get this cleared out just because there has been heat, and they don't like the fact that
Greg, so are they coming to your home to arrest you, or are you hiding out somewhere?
Well, here's the funny part. It took them 2 weeks to find us. These are guys supposed to be looking for Osama. That's number one. And second, I was really worried because we just had to fly into New York before the September 11th commemorative, and I'm thinking, God, they're not going to we have a criminal charge, Homeland Security, they're not going to let us on the plane. And Matt was very nervous about this, and then we got on the plane, and then we got even more nervous because they let us on the plane. What kind of operation is this? These are the guys who are supposed to protect us. So, while they're running around worrying about my footage, there really are dangers out there.
So will there be an update on your site with a story soon?
Yep, I've got some. In fact, you can see the dangerous film. I put it up at www.gregpalast.com.